Hiya! Welcome to this, my 63rd episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Unconventional Means, I switch things up with a focus on current shows, including in-depth commentary on the 12th season finale of Doctor Who, the series finale of The Magicians, and a bit of a lightning round. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
First, the obligatory status report included in podcasts since about mid-February. I'm fine. We're fine. We're both no city brew, no balancing goat. I'm just writing this one up at home. Ralph and I are staying put as much as we're able to. I work at a hospital where we're all updated daily. Temperature screenings, hand washing, hand sanitizing, personal protection. We're taking this very seriously. I don't want to be down with anything. I don't want to bring anything home ever. We are doing everything we can, believe me. Fortunately, this hobby is self-isolating, just me and my screens. In fact, I had to dive a little deeper on this one, so breaking format a little as I was putting last one to bed, if our memory goes back that far, the Doctor Who finale had just aired.
Friday Night Feature.
Yep, from disc X304 in my current collection comes the Doctor Who 12th season finale titled The Timeless Children. A fresh armada of cyberfolk had all but wiped out all of far-flung future humankind with improbably levitating cyber drones flying attack waves followed by close-order foot soldiers, improbably missing every last remaining human, including the 3 the Doctor had brought with her, they begged to come along, who, quite without upgrade, were able to hide inside cyberkits no problem, despite the nanites involved in the upgrade process would have been rewriting their innards' first point of contact. See, presence of Cybermen, their attack on the last human outpost, wiping out the human race that one far future time, wasn't even that big a deal, long run, because Sasha Dewan as the Master showed up, confronted the Doctor, threatened to kill her team if she didn't come through with him to the wreckage of their home planet, Gallifrey. A lot happened this episode. It was a month ago. I'm basically writing this from memory, but the 12th season finale, The Timeless Children, traced an origin story for Time Lord society. Time lore, as it were. Glimmers of recorded history. Seems like some intrepid Time Lord historian would have considered it worthy of investigation at some point, but way back when, the indigenous civilization on Gallifrey encountered a child who fell through a rift in the void. That's already a lot. What void? What rift in it? How is there a rift in a void? Indigenous Gallifrey scientist, one woman, I suppose before the child showed up, she was puttering about in her cave lab trying to get to the bottom of this void rift she'd encountered when a child popped out and then promptly died. Then she regenerated, and the indigenous Gallifreyan scientist's reaction to that was, "Oh, I want to do that." So she did experiments on her and distilled something from the whatsis as the child, meanwhile, continued to cycle through countless deaths and regenerations throughout the entire catalog of races and genders available, and the science lady ultimately distilled and transferred that regenerative ability to a class of Gallifreyans known as Time Lords. Along with this regenerative ability, in which they determined you could only have 12, like this super arbitrary limit, what's the point? They also developed the Citadel and the Panopticon, and I guess their studies of the Rift and the Void progressed to the Vortex and the Schism, cobbling together the Eye of Harmony, a standard upgrade available to the Type 40 TARDIS, along with the Chameleon Arch to modify the driver, and the Chameleon Circuit to modify the outward appearance of the vehicle, and with a regular Rift energy power-up in Cardiff, and an apparently inexhaustible supply of living metal, a sort of mystical replicator, navigate travel through space and time. Here's a part of the story they whipped through about 2 minutes too fast. Why? The sudden presence of a regenerative being on a planet where none exists doesn't translate directly to, why can't I do that? And the ability to regenerate does not, in and of itself, evolve into the ability to travel through time. It feels like these peeks into the prehistory of Gallifrey neatly square off a just so story where Oh, right. A couple of episodes, they've paralleled this storyline where a foundling turns up in this village, is adopted by a family, grows up to be a constable, gives his entire life to service, and is mind-wiped or something at the end of it. And I'm told that this timeless child coexists throughout the entire timeline of the rise of Gallifrey, this reality where she and he's a child all the way through, right up until they settle pretty firmly on white and male for more than 1,000 years, and he's aging through his regenerations and is, in fact, the Doctor.
What?
It's okay, though, because, back in 1976, there was a peak, a canonical peak, at pre-Hartnell versions of the Doctor. Hard to say exactly how many, maybe half a dozen. Damn, that 12 regenerations thing was going to get constricting. Tom Baker's Doctor said a couple of other things in that rather balls-out series. At first, they weren't too far away from his homeworld, placing the Sisterhood of Kar not that far off, shored up in the tension between themselves and the Time Lords. Morbius, this was all from the 1976 series, The Brain of Morbius. Morbius was an evil Time Lord who had been executed, but not really. They had his brain in Dr. Frankenstein's castle. Really a lot of Franken themes with this current incarnation of the Cybermen and this rather more expansive backstory for the Doctor, because, of course, she has no memory of this. None. Far as she's known, far as Impossible Girl Clara is ever able to get to in writing the course of the Doctor's personal history, guided Doc and Susan to the right TARDIS about a dozen regenerations ago, she was William Hartnell. She's got all those memories, remembers growing up with the Master. Tom Baker remembers 750 years and a bunch of people that she doesn't, and none of them are a tall black woman either. It's a lot, even in canon, especially in canon. The Sixth Doctor should barely exist then, but nobody talks about that. No Guardian shows up and says, "Oh, hey there, you've had too many regenerations, shut yourself down," doubling down on it with the realization that the Doctor is trying himself as the distillation of his darkest energies sometime in the ever more distant future. Valiard, Dream Lord, whatever he is, timeless child, the Master reveals that she, in fact, has been the source of regeneration for the Time Lords since for all of Time Lord history. Her memories redacted, her own origins shrouded in mystery, and, why not? Seems an eternal flame providing an elixir of life. See, I just watched, having found out about this, I pulled up a set of original series Doctor Who discs, and I did happen to have the Brain of Morbius, and this final installment of that one, Doc challenges Morby to a mind-bending Time Lord mental wrestling match, and what do you know? Past versions of the Doctor appear. That appearance reprised in the season finale, The Timeless Children. So, apparently the Doctor's origins, half Time Lord, half human, born to a human mother, thought they'd laid in the potential for that in The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, a human woman who'd been caught in the vortex at one point. Somewhat unusual. The only other one I'm aware of was Amy and Rory honeymooning aboard a space liner running through the vortex, busy conceiving Melody Pond, who turned out to be River Song, a side effect born with the ability to regenerate. So you've got the Doctor falling to Gallifrey through a rift in the void, born with a seemingly endless ability to regenerate, and not that far away you have the Sisterhood of Karn, tending to the sacred flame from whence they distill the elixir of life. Throw in unresolved tension with the dominant culture a few worlds over, might want to check in, see if any rather persistent children went missing at any point. Because with dozens of writers and all the canon that's happened over the years, with all the time they took off from one season to the next, I was hoping that showrunner Chris Chibnall would spend that time and considerable love for and history with this show in an attempt to reconcile 50-plus years of show history with all, or at least the largest of the quirky, out-there, one-off reveals that now include that she's the limitless source of all regeneration on the planet. But they're cool with her off flying around all of space and time. That's fine. Take a TARDIS, go explore. Look, guys, instead of coming up with wacky new untenable backstories for the main character, who has already been deep dive explored to the point of preaching us over and over and over again, or just wackadoo situations for her to be in, a dinosaur on a spaceship, Season 13, if there is one, should massage and knead and stitch together all of these. There were pirates and black spots and Mentiads and sisterhoods and Captain Jack and dead birds and a daughter and me and Clara and the ruins of Gallifrey, and I mean, oh wow, instead of right towards the end, the Master ingesting the Cyberium and hybridizing with the Cybermen, so now weird Cybermasters, before the death particle was detonated, apparently killing him. Problem there is the death particle destroys Biomat. Master had fused with the fully mecha Cyberium ahead of the detonation, so he's almost certainly still around. See, there was just so much. And alone at the end, in her TARDIS, having dropped her friends back into their own timelines on present-day Earth, Doc is set upon by the Judoon Cold Case Division, arresting her and locking her away in an asteroid. Time enough, one hopes, to think about her next move. And preferably not another one of these no time for context to dive right in, no understanding of how we got here, here's our adventure of the week ridiculousness, no time to explain, it won't make more sense later, it'll never make sense, just run. What I'm saying is your average viewer should not have to have a copy of The Brain of Morbius from 1976 on their shelf to understand what's going on. Weird Station Master storylines with retirement gifts and clocks and memory redactions that are never satisfactorily explained. The Doctor has actually been every race and sex throughout all of Gallifreyan history, but it would mess things up somehow if she knew this. In the end, our memories and our experiences make us who we are. If she's got no access to potentially 1 billion years of her own personal history, that 1,000 or so she does remember is like me navigating my whole life with the memories I made while recording this episode. Chris, at this stage in human history, there are people who have seen this whole show, who have access to all of the canonical materials, who have put in the work. Seriously, probably PhD thesis levels of work on this show. Hire one. Hire a bunch. Regard them with the respect that they deserve and partner with them to shape the new season. Don't mess this up. Honestly, things got way into the weeds under Capaldi, and that made a little bit of sense character-wise, since all of his memories of Clara had been erased and he was spun, but Doctor Who went off the air for most of 2 decades. This Doc has great energy, but keeps sending her out as Goldilocks with weird storylines, and it'll happen again. Shows have got to be commercial, and surely a good chunk of your fan base is tuning in out of nostalgia. Capitalize on that. Spend about 60% of the next season following up on old storylines, course-correcting for unintended consequences. You've already built so many universes in this production over the past half-century. Why reinvent the wheel all the time? Hell, you might still be able to get some of the original cast. You've got some time. Look into it. And on a personal note, I'll include the link in my show notes, but I wanted to thank Jodie Whittaker for stepping in as the Doctor briefly this past week or so to share a message of hope with people, especially child people, who are worried in the face of this global pandemic. She talked a little too fast and a little too softly, but the advice was good, and reaching out to whoever might need it right now was a seriously class act. Well done.
Cross Connection.
I think I've traced Doctor Who as part of my Studio 6 Feet Under challenge. There was David Tennant in a Disney production with Allison Janney from West Wing, 0 steps to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and since Whittaker worked with Tennant in Broadchurch, that's not far at all. I can also get Janney to Studio 60 through Matthew Perry on Mr. Sunshine, so nothing in this group is too far away. I did think of a show I pulled in, well, a couple now. Back in episode 54, I pulled up a production called The Zodiac Killer from 1971, where, by all indications, they were almost proud of how non-commercial they made the thing. And for this one, Ralph and I watched a 4-part documentary called The Most Dangerous Animal at All, on a guy from Louisiana whose search for information about his biological father convinced him that he was the son of the Zodiac Killer. Again, it's documentary, I'm a get what I get. IMDb lists 3 credited cast members, and ironically enough, the last name listed is probably my best shot at making this connection. Corey Landis provided the voiceover for Earl Best Jr., whom author Gary L. Lewis identified as his biological father, and then wrote of his belief that he was the Zodiac Killer. None of the credited cast members, the others were Kyle DeCamp and Caitlin Kaposi, have been in all that much, all that often, but Corey Landis had the most listings, including That 70s Show in 2001. Technically, Ashton Kutcher gets me to Charlie Sheen in 2.5 Men, who gets me to Martin Sheen in a commercial I archived recently, and Martin was ta-da on the West Wing with everyone involved at Studio 60. I can also go the Mila Kunis route with William Shatner in American Psycho 2 and with Ed Begley Jr. in Boston Legal, 0 steps from 6 Feet Under. This also allows me to pretend a blissful lack of awareness of 2.5 Men. Oh, is that a show? Was it some kind of... I plead ignorance. Either way, reasonably well connected for a documentary. The center holds.
Diving into my classic collection.
On disc 866, I found an interesting plotline from a 12th season's Simpsons, Bye Bye Nerdy, when Homer was busy baby-proofing the house. He was putting up a guardrail and asked Maggie to hand him a nail gun. She naturally went full-on machine gun Maggie, power-nailing everything in sight and sending several into Homer as well. It sparked a memory for me, and it took a bit of digging to find, but I tracked down the 3rd season premiere featuring Michael Jackson as a mental patient, episode titled Stark Raving Dad. It was an America's Funniest Home Videos homage Homer was watching, featuring Man Breaking Hip, Dog on Fire, and I believe it was the heartwarming winning entry, Baby with a Nail Gun. Ah. It took 9 years to pay off, but given the scene, that's the kind of footage you cut to, guys. What else? Lots to get to here. I'm always amazed by Fringe and look forward to one day being able to just kick back and watch them all. But first season episode The Equation, where John Noble as mad scientist Walter Bishop had to re-enter the asylum he's been free from for weeks by then, that was some incredible acting. The storyline was so worth it as well, involving mind control, hypnosis, and a child's intuitive interpretation of a musical passage into a complicated equation, the results of which could be leveraged to enable transmigration, the passage of one object through another. Absolutely fantastic show. On disc 857, I was strongly considering this one for my Friday night feature, actually, but it was ultimately pretty gross. Walter Matthau and Inger Stevens star in A Guide for the Married Man, presented by Fox Movie Channel. Robert Morse, more usually on my screen as Bert Cooper in Mad Men, nice, spends the entire movie giving his best friend, Walt, advice on how to cheat on Inger there. Opening sequence basically has Matthau as Paul Manning going about his day, and wow, he cannot believe how many hot young women are out there just wiggling around, fawning and swooning all over him absolutely everywhere he goes. Oh, his wife Ruth is all right, I guess, if you're into that whole hot, sexy blonde mother of your child who's clearly devoted to you thing, but Morse as Paul's friend Ed sees his eye as roving and proceeds to lay out the Barney Stinson bro code for the late 1960s. All married men want to cheat, he said, but only 43% act on it. Never say you'll be someplace that they can prove you weren't. Don't meet anywhere especially well lit, or where you're likely to run into anyone you know. Keep a spare suit and a change of shoes in your trunk, and don't do it in your own house. She could leave something behind. Don't cheat with someone who's looking to fall in love, and not your secretary. Make sure she's got as much to lose as you do, and if you are caught, deny. And they're illustrating all this advice with the most ham-fisted cliches they could film. All the while, Ruth is doing everything to make it clear to Paul that she wants some attention, and he's so distracted by all the hot young touch he could get. When he does choose a lover, Mrs. Montgomery, a fairly forward divorcee, he arranges to meet with her at a hotel, and oh, it's becoming real for him. He's been able to hold this fantasy in discretion. It's all been planning and strategy. Now it's a resolute, sexy brunette who has chosen Paul as her rebound fling. She knows why she's in that hotel room. Paul keeps trying to talk her out of it. Maybe she doesn't want to give herself away. Maybe she'd like to pursue something more permanent. Suddenly there's a disturbance outside, and it's a raid. The cops have bust down a door, and it's Ed in bed with another woman, not his wife. There's newspaper photographers. This is going to be in the papers. Oh, Paul grabs his clothes, barely says goodbye to Mrs. M, hightails it home, now entirely committed to his wife. The next day on his way to work, he is determined not to notice all the hot young temptations that surround him. His brain shuts it all down, and as he pulls into his driveway over the homespun strains of There's No Place Like Home, his loving wife and child run out to embrace him. What's gross about it is the base-level anticipation, almost celebration that after a few years of marriage, a guy just gets bored and there is no hotter aphrodisiac than a balding, paunchy, middle-aged white guy.
Oh my god, it's like catnip. I could never get enough.
The level of delusion that the cocktail waitresses and Hooters staff and any beautiful young woman hired specifically because she's young and beautiful is into these guys past whatever level they stop tipping is ridiculous. Of course, not every wife looks like Inger Stevens, and to whatever fantasies these young ladies fire in these men, to the good of the order, so be it. But generally, a guide for the married man is gross, feels like it's mostly about attitude, grass is always greener, buyer's remorse, the level of privilege you used to need to be an actual king to feel, all the while stoking a sense of dissatisfaction. You work hard, you deserve the best, go out and get a better house, a better car, a better wife. The second or two at the end where he finally realizes, hey, I've got everything I could ever possibly want right here. Why would I ever do a thing to jeopardize that? Doesn't really undo the 2 hours they just spent working tirelessly to convince him otherwise. Of course, men have been gross for all of human history. Dressing it up as a comic spoof potentially opens lines of communication for couples who might have struggled with the question of, do you still? Is everyone still happy? Is it time to spice things up a little? And what are your thoughts regarding power tools? Pre the 1980s therapy wave, these films probably opened discussions in bedrooms or on car rides home people likely struggled with on the cusp of women's liberation, and they were little more than morality plays in body or gear, but as storytelling, gotta say, hard to recommend. On disc 864, gotta say, I was not expecting to see Candice Bergen tied up in a basement as David Dean Bottrell strummed a ukulele singing Christmas carols as made popular by Alvin and the Chipmunks, but that was the sight waiting for me as I pressed play on the third season Boston Legal episode On the Ledge. Nutjob, oops, I didn't see you there. Lincoln Meyer is joyfully regaling his reluctant guest, singing A Chipmunk Christmas.
Christmas, Christmas night is near, time for toys and time for cheer.
And Shirley's eyes are eloquent. On removing the duct tape from her mouth, there's no point, he won't answer a direct question. He's all, has anyone ever told you you have the most delicious-looking earlobes? Oh, it gets old. Ever since I first saw you, I thought I would simply love to suck on your right earlobe. And the words came out venomous. Lincoln, suck my lobes. Throw to the opener. Top of its game, the show was pure comic legal drama. The characters were ridiculous, over the top. You could not run a law firm with these people doing these things, but here we all were, and David Dean Bottrell, oh my word, the fun. This was really his episode. Surely, in what time, with what energy got him talking, my very favorite thing he does, because there's a couple of things. You're an actor, you got lines, there's a story you're telling, but usually someone else wrote it. You're infusing the meaning with your instrument, your expression, your inflection. Lincoln Meyer was a deeply twisted little bugger. I feel the writers cut loose and had a lot of fun with it. It was his job, David D. Bottrell, given the script, given some direction, given the character he's crafted thus far, to take these words and make us believe that there's a person this scary and ridiculous who would say these things, do these things. You had to have the inappropriately personable meshed in with the creepily menacing. Just perfect voice, perfect inflection, absolutely fantastic job with that character.
Checking out my current collection.
I didn't want to go into the level of detail with these things that I've been of late. It's taking longer than I'd like to write them up. The longer they are, the more editing they need, and that cuts into the cataloging time. But I must go into at least a little detail about the title of this episode. See, I already needed to dip into my ancient digital recordings of Doctor Who episodes researching this effort, discs from the dawn of my archiving efforts. As I pointed out elsewhere, lots of media are available for download and streaming from a variety of sources, often for direct payment or as part of a subscription, but the ultimate goal of this project is, if it's in my collection, I want to lay hands to it, locate it, and press play. And I was actually able to do that in order to research. By the way, huge shout out to friend of the podcast, Jesse Zimmerman, for calling my attention to that mind-bending Time Lord wrestling match between the Doctor and Morbius, which showed a bunch of past pre-Hartnell incarnations of the Doctor, who were then referenced again in the season 12 finale. For personages that had been redacted from his memory, it didn't seem to take much to dig them up. It's like, I had a life before I was on your screens, you losers. And honestly, one of those, let us never speak of this again. Oh, until right now, 1976, 2020, yep, once every 44 years. It's like they can't shut up about it. And then, yeah, despite no one ever going back any further than Hartnell for anything ever, well, of course you've regenerated before, through all of Time Lord history, and the source of regeneration itself on this planet, why not? Fall a lot through a rift and a void. But yeah, along with calling up ancient discs of recordings supporting canon I'd completely spaced, I also needed to stream a couple of episodes of The Magicians.
Whatever you're watching, wherever you be, stream on the stream with me.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened. I've got a DVR. I know how to program it, in theory. I turned it on this past weekend, and I'd recorded 21 Jump Street, and I'm like, no, I didn't. Delete. Of course, schedules shift and change, and now I don't know what I'd meant to record, but ever since Hank Azaria's fourth and final season of Brockmire started showing up on IFC, highly recommend. Wednesday night recordings have been a mess, and the show they have messed with is The Magicians. You all might remember I've had some trouble with this one. I came to it late, I missed the first season, and Sci-Fi did not seem to want to re-air season 1 for years. I watched in vain for rebroadcasts. Nope, they had season 2 on demand, they had season 3 on demand, no question about any of those episodes, but any glimpse of how this started? No dice. Oh, until I completely gave up, and by the time I noticed again, they aired 8 of them. Oh my god, how are you doing this? Eventually I was able to watch all of the first season, but in the most disjointed possible way, and over the course of years. Now we're coming up on the 5th season finale. They've introduced the big bad, they've laid in their motivation, they've laid in strategy and groundwork for the big series closeout, and god damn it, Brockmire, I can smell that malodorous plaid war crime of a red houndtooth's blazer from here. Don't you preempt my recording of The Magicians. First time was okay, I'll get it. Wait, no. What the hell, Sci-Fi? You're not updating your on-demand listing? Update. Fine, I'll get it later somehow. Okay, for sure this week I'll get it. It's the musical episode. I've reorganized the recording priorities by hand. I'll head down and watch it after the recording builds up a little. No recording, nothing. A few minutes left of the second airing. Christ, where is this? What is happening? Oh, I see I'm recording Brockmire again, though. I talked to you about this. I told you I'd pick up Brockmire later, or I'm tuning in just as Hale Appleman is singing I Want to Be Sedated, and you've taken the night off. They're closed for the foreseeable. In truth, there's lots of reasons Midco doesn't have a DVR-sized hole in their storefront window. Counterproductive, criminal. It'd only compound the problem, and what would I record anything else on? But yeah, still no on-demand updates, and the finale is coming up here on Wednesday. Series finale of I Love This Show. I think it's some of the best television on television, and my DVR is being so unreliable. Well, 2 issues. I can't watch the finale without watching the run-up. That's obvious. I listened to the Coffee Clutch podcast, so I got the gist of the episode I missed, but I want to see it. And I for sure want to see the musical episode, or at least hear them talk about it, but oh my god, because of their scheduling, the Coffee Clutchers weren't doing another podcast till after the finale airs this week, so I couldn't even really get the gist from them. Amazon hooked me up with both episode 10, Be the Hyman. It's a reference from season 3 episode titled Be the Penny. Hyman is a 1920s Breakbill student and astral projector who helps Sergeant Gupta as Penny regain his physical presence after Penny's shade gets stuck in the astral plane and he can't communicate with the others. And episode 11, The Balls, a reference to the character names of the season 5 Big Bad, the couple, who own a swanky hotel only open to magicians. Can't imagine that did especially well last season, and there's lots of wording and lots of rules, but a rogue team of magicians mapped it out and planned a heist, which the leader escaped, but the co-conspirators got beaten to within an inch of their life. But it's all good information, and together with the information our heroes have, they can break and steal the world seed, which, right circumstances, could end up saving Fillory, the Narnia world of this show. And given that Fillory is the seed of the wellspring of magic in this world as well, priority. Oh, and there was singing. Lots and lots of singing. We know we're not going to get another chance to do this stuff, levels of singing. It was awesome, and yeah, no, not thrilled about paying out for shows I can't even archive, especially since the episode should have just been available on demand, and oh yeah, Magician series finale this week. I am plunked down in front of the damn thing, recording it with an 8mm. I am not taking any chances.
Quick edit, I just saw it last night. It was fantastic. More later.
Oh, and Hank, that flaming paper bag on your doorstep, go ahead and just stomp that right out. No, heading into what's... Oh, yeah, that was the whole Unconventional Means reference. I watched a couple of different shows putting this one together I had to get at via... They're like the home-burned DVD equivalent of stone tablets, almost, getting at those Doctor Who Brain of Morbius episodes. Current system, as it turns out, is much more reliable. And then I had to stream a couple episodes of The Magicians in anticipation of the finale. I'm sure Sci-Fi will air them again one day, but this way I'm not coming to the closeout quite so cold. Very much appreciate having been able to stream them, and just hope I'm able to one day add them to my collection. But heading into what's going to end up being the lightning round, Hank, seriously, you have zero control over what my DVR decides it's going to do, and that's all a function of whether it listens to me or not, and maybe we're just going to have to switch it out again. It's about time for its million-mile tune-up. The reason I've got the DVR set for Brockmire in the first place is how absolutely fantastic Hank Azaria is in this show. Talk about a voice. The man has found the right energy, the right motivation. I'm a little surprised at how cool he is with a 10-year-old South Korean daughter showing up right out of the clear blue sky, but the man has gained quite a bit of maturity in our time with him. Also, no one's going to accuse this show of rose-colored glasses. The show has basically taken 2020 and given it a megaphone. It's 2030 now, and everything has gone completely to hell. To be closer to his now college-age daughter, a beautiful and brilliant young woman, Brockmire has accepted a job in New York as commissioner of the National Baseball League, which is, wow, the problems this operation. I believe its chief sponsor is cholera. Oh, my mistake, it's cholera. Medication helps seniors deal with content fatigue. The U.S. has devolved into a, be honest, predictable dystopic nightmare they've only managed to hint at so far, but yeah, as with past seasons, the worse his environment, the funnier he gets. So I, for one, am ready for season 4 to just blow the roof off.
Lightning round.
And here we go. They've aired, and I've archived some Mystery Science Theater 3000s, caught The Vanishing Corpse a week or so ago. I remember absolutely loving the later incarnations of this production. The earlier ones, it was a great idea. They hadn't quite found a pace for it. I'll watch a few more and report back. I recorded a few episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine rebroadcast on BBC America, featuring a handful of institutionalized genetically enhanced patients. They were introduced in statistical probabilities, and the second, Chrysalis, included a musical interlude they improvised by way of vocal training for a formerly catatonic patient. I've been looking for that passage for a while, and am happy to have found it. It's quite beautiful. I mentioned watching the FX documentary with the author who tracked down his biological father and in his research came to suspect him of being the Zodiac Killer. The 4-part piece, titled The Most Dangerous Animal of All, outlined the meticulous research by author Gary L. Stewart and closed with commentary that raised questions about the conclusions he drew from some of the evidence on which he was basing his claims, which frankly seemed fair. It was an engaging exploration of the topic. And then, third season of The Sinner. Yep, wasn't going to lightning round this one, but I got through the series finale recently, and good riddance. Motivations were unreadable, cases entirely unmade, investigations spun out to detectives and departments that sputtered and went nowhere. No part of this one came together especially well. There were a lot of potentially good ideas and pressure points, but it crumbled. This season, as with last season, could not match the towering ambition of season 1. The Sinner, just take the deepest trust leap off the nearest bridge you can get to. Briar Patch is a lot of people being all Texas in a small town somewhere. Not bad, not good, not finding any of them to be especially compelling. Alan Cumming menacing teens in a diner for poking a hole in his salt shaker and later ironing a shirt in the middle of a dirt road somewhere seems like... That's weird even for weird rich people, right? I need to know how the hell he fits into all this, and pretty soon. Speaking of weird, however, AMC's Dispatches from Elsewhere is doing it exactly right. I am enjoying the crap out of that show. Piquant art piece written by Jason Segel and exploring a great variety of weird for the sake of weird situations. Part of a very enjoyable Monday night viewing for both Ralph and myself, and I can't wait to see where they're going with this. Also Monday nights, Kim just proposed to Jimmy on Better Call Saul in the last line of last week's episode following a dig-down, dirty mud fight of negotiation. I am on the edge of my seat to see what happens next. And really quick here, Freeform premiered Motherland, Fort Salem recently. I've caught the first two, alternate history, witches pulled into military service to battle supernatural forces. It's got a great message for young women. Your power is your voice. Use it. Very enjoyable. Check that out. And with that, thank you so much for checking out my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, past episodes at Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, via email, or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out for sure the next video, Fuzzy.